Be strong.
After some time, he touches the moonstone. That's what the meteorite is called, and it was once an asteroid that used to orbit the stars of other dimensions. He observes the surge of mana on his hands just from touching it, and the glimmering light that is coming from within. It's just the same as he read in the novel, and this yellow meteorite holds the power to counter the oncoming catastrophe. He is notified that the moonstone offers him to evolve to the next level, but he refuses. He knows that he will grow into a werewolf if he accepts its power, but there is more to the meteorite than this. He is again notified that the moonstone feels a mysterious bond to him. Seong comes to him and asks if he found something, and he guesses that she is trying to work the angles for their donations now that a demon king has hunted her. He appreciates her avatar's skill, and she asks him when he will tell her about the thing from earlier. She exclaims that she knows nothing about these two renouncers, and they are connected somehow, and Dokja replies that she is probably someone he knows. She is surprised that he knows the King of Wanderers and says she is not a renouncer and probably hasn't even read the novel. Seong asks how she knows what happens there, and Dokja replies he told her by himself. She is surprised and asks how he told someone this boring story, and he replies that he needed something to talk about when he was with her. He couldn't think of any other topic of conversation then, and Seong asked if they should do something about them since others besides them knew the future. Dokja replies that he is going to awaken the moonstone first, and she asks him why he will awaken a catastrophe. He tells her that he will infuse meteorite with his mana, which should be done in 10 hours according to his calculation, 4 hours from him and 6 hours from her. She asks him why she has to do it for 6 hours, and Dokja says her mana level is higher than her and asks about her current mana stat. He needs to know this to clear the scenarios, and she replies that she is at level 55. Dokja is shocked because he suspected it would be at least 40 from the number of avatars she had, but he didn't expect it to be that high. He thinks she must have spent all her coins on mana instead of stamina or strength, and he makes a new plan. He will go for 2 hours, and she will go for 8 hours. She tries to resist, saying she is almost out of mana right now, and he gives her some potions to drink. She takes the potion and says his supporting constellation must be quite a big spender. Dokja replies that he paid for it himself, and she asks him if it is okay for them to do this when the main scenario hasn't even begun yet, but this doesn't matter to him. He tells her it is not a catastrophe and says she must have slacked off while plagiarizing. He asks her to remember what comes out of this meteorite after the scenario begins, and she starts reading the novel and is shocked to see something. Dokja starts using his mana to break the moonstone. 10 hours later, they have completed the task, and she asks him to get up saying it starts hurting. The stone starts moving and vibrating, and a bulk of light emits from it. They are notified that he has encountered a being from another world for the first time in the scenario. Their affinity toward other world species has increased, and he has received 2,000 coins for his achievement. He has gained a new skill that helps him communicate with other world species. He has also obtained the skill of another world interpreter, level 1, and a vast beast appears from it. Dokja's comprehension has increased due to the item's effect, the protection symbol of the immunter. He starts auto-translation to understand the beast's language and asks if it is time to wake him up. Dokja is shocked to see a colossal stature of over 3 meters. The ruling species of Kronos is a world where one transforms at night, drawing the power of the moonstone. The wolf exclaims that he is one of Kronos' 5 ruling species and the excellent first wolf. They are warriors of the wind who possess monstrous strength and stamina. In Kronos, they are called the first wolf immunter. Dokja checks its character profile. Its name is Lycaon, and he is around 371 years old. It is revealed that the 5th scenario features 5 catastrophes and 5 scenario guides that lend the strength to stop the disaster. One of those guides is Lycaon, and he asks them if they have awakened him. He congratulates them on completing the tutorial scenario and calls them the warriors of the other world. Dokja thinks everyone knows that every scenario counts as much as the other, and Lycaon apologizes to him, saying his world has come to give with a catastrophe. He asks them not to be scared because he is the guide who will help them stop the world from ending, train them for the coming catastrophe, and teach them all they need to know. He asks them if they are the only ones who have awakened him, and he finds it strange and asks if they haven't cleared the 4th scenario. He states that if they completed it correctly, all the guides, including himself, should have hatched at the exact location of the ruler's throne's owner. Dokja thinks Lycion and the other guides were meant to gather at the ruler's throne once someone claimed it and told him they don't have a king. Lycion asks if their king has died, but there shouldn't be anyone powerful enough to kill the one on the ruler's throne. Dokja tells him that no one has claimed the throne, and they completed the fourth scenario without obtaining the ruler's throne. Lycion gets angry about this and says he is lying to him, and Dokja tells him there is also a way to destroy the throne. He then notices something in Dokja and asks if he has summoned all the constellations before. He gets angry and asks how they can do such a thing, and with his voice, the ground starts vibrating. Seong doesn't understand their conversation and asks if he said something to be so mad about, and Lycion asks him if the great god protects no one there. He shouts loudly and asks how the constellations of the star stream have forsaken Kronos, saying that the world is over now. He says the humans must be no more intelligent than a mere kobold and asks him if he knows what he has done. Dokja thinks this is their true nature, and these guides act as if they were sent over to help them, but they have an ulterior motive. Dokja calls him Lycion Isparang, the prince of the immuter, and says it's too early to give up. He calls him a foolish human and asks him to show his respect for the great species of immuter, and he doesn't seem to know the weight of his actions. Dokja asks him if he has lost his senses when his home is destroyed. He tells him that the immuter were the ruling species of Kronos, not Earth. The catastrophes destroyed his world, and the dragon destroyed the southern part of Kronos, where he is from. He tells him about fire dragon Ignir, and he talks about the catastrophe from the flaming depths of hell. He says it is the creature that destroyed his world. Lycion seems angry and says he seems to be taking this too lightly, and he will regret his words, and his body will soon be riding in the flames of hell. Dokja says he doesn't need to worry because Ignir won't be coming to their world. He makes him shocked by saying he has already killed it, so there will be no fires of hell there in this world. Lycion remembers the time when his world was destroyed, and he cried for his people. Seong says the fire dragon he killed is one of the 5 catastrophes, even though it was a minor one. Now they only have to stop 4 catastrophes in the 5th scenario. She doesn't understand because he killed a lesser dragon. Then how does it count as one of the catastrophes if it's not even real? Dokja tells her that anything hatched by the meteorites counts as a catastrophe. If that thing came out instead of Ignir, it won't appear in this scenario. Ignir wasn't in the original novel either. He exclaims that they are only at the 5th scenario and that they are supposed to beat it if something like that suddenly appears. She then asks him about the protection symbol that he got after killing the fire dragon. He showed this item to Lycion, who was shocked to see it and asked where he got it. He received the protection symbol of Immuter for defeating the fire dragon at Anguk Station. He almost died then, but things turned out for the better. He calls him Lycion the Immuter and asks him to pay his respect before the symbol of protection. Lycion bows before him angrily, but Dokja asks him to pay his respect properly. He then bows before him properly, calls Dokja the Great Dragon Hunter, and asks him if he may have the honor of knowing his name. Dokja tells him his name and thinks it's so lame. Seong guesses catastrophes aren't a big deal, and she was a little scared of how horrifying it sounded in TWSA, but the rest shouldn't be a problem if even he can kill them. Dokja says he got lucky with the fire dragon, and the others will be just as they are depicted in the novel. Seong asks him what they should do now, and he replies that they will use Lycion to destroy other catastrophes. Seong says he looks strong and asks if he will fight for them. He says the guides can't fight against the catastrophes of the worlds they don't belong in, and he's quite a coward. Lycion calls him master and says he is ready, while Dokja asks him if he can call him something other than master. He refuses by saying he can't dare call the names of those who hold the symbol of protection. He then says he will teach him the skill passed down in their family, the way of the wind. It is revealed that 5 catastrophes are spawning in the north, east, south, west, and center of Seoul, but since the fire dragon, the catastrophe of the south has perished. The catastrophe that will spawn in the 5th scenario will be the catastrophe of the east. The reason Dokja had Lycion was so that he could obtain the skill required to stop the catastrophe of the east. The skill, the way of the wind, has been passed down through generations of the immuter. Lycion teaches him the skill and asks him to tempest in the left hand and storm in the right. After that, the way of the wind will open up where the straight and the curved meet. He follows the same rules as Jung-hyuk did in TWSA, and Lykion apologizes to inform him that he hasn't got what it takes to learn the skill, the way of the wind. In short, he humiliates him, saying he doesn't have the talent to learn any skill, and Dokja knows that it is a skill that is essential in stopping the fifth catastrophe. He asks him why he can't do this, while Seong laughs at him loudly and makes his fun. She calls him and says he is hopeless, and he has been at this for 2 days, and it's about time he should give up. Dokja is shocked and thinks Jung-hyuk mastered this skill in 5 minutes, but he is not the main character. She asks him if he has been fooling himself into thinking he is Jung-hyuk since he has done well lately. He tries to do this again and follows Lykion's instructions with Tempest in the left hand and Storm in the right. He then calls these lines as a metaphor, and Lykion says he has to do as he has said. Dokja is getting angry and thinks all the instructions in TWSA are written in gibberish like this, and he asks Lykion to try another skill, saying one wind meets the other to form Tijuk, and again the wind meets the other to form yin and yang. Lykion surprisingly asks him how he made such profound interpretations, and he shows him the trick. He joins one wind meets the other to form Tijuk, and again the wind meets the other to form yin and yang. Dokja is shocked that he follows his instructions and shows him a new skill while Seong still laughs at him. He changes its phrases and says the 4 winds meet to form a fortification and meet again in the shape of a trigram. He asks him to make it so that the wind is everywhere and nowhere. He thinks Lykion can't do this, so he calls and bows before him, saying he thanks him from the bottom of his heart. He is notified that the Tier 5 humanoid demon, Lykion, Prince of the Immunter, has had an epiphany, and he is grateful to him for this. He has been gifted 2,000 coins for this, and the constellations are amazed to see his pathetic behavior. Suddenly, Dokkaebi appears behind him and asks why he destroyed the throne and calls him an idiot. They have met after a long time, and he asks him how he has been all the time, and Dokja asks him about the mid-level Dokkaebi. He observes that Seong can't see him, which means he is only visible to him, and Dokkaebi tells him that he won't see the mid-level Dokkaebi for a while since he was disciplined. He won't be able to come back until the 5th scenario starts for real, and Dokja knew that it would happen with him wreaking havoc like that. Dokkaebi thanks him for leveling up his channel again, and he will probably promoted to a mid-level Dokkaebi by next month. He observes that Dokja seems upset and asks him about the reason because what's good for him is also good for him. He can care about other incarnations, but there is no way he would leave him hanging. Meanwhile, Seong comes to him and asks if she can learn the skill instead of him since they just need someone who knows that way of the wind skill. She asks him if it matters who learns it, and Dokja replies that only those with the protection symbol can learn the way of the wind. She asks him to give him the protection symbol, but the Dokja says the ownership of the symbol can't be transferred. She confirms from her skill that she is telling the truth, and Dokja says she is even more skeptical than Jung-hyuk, and she also knows that he was supposed to learn that skill in the novel. She asks him why he is trying to learn the skill and asks him to leave it to him, and that they should go and look for him for a while. Dokja says Jung-hyuk doesn't listen to others, and she is sure that she can seduce him. Dokja is shocked at her thinking and says she can't do this. Besides, it's also a problem if they find him. He knows that Jung-hyuk won't be able to learn the skill without the protection symbol, which means he will have to take it from him, and he needs to be dead to unbind the symbol from his possession. He knows that Jung-hyuk will try to kill him if he sees him, and even if he wants to find him, he doesn't. Suddenly, they hear some noises from a distance from someone calling for help, and the constellations are pushing him for some reason to help the wounded person. They go toward the place where they see some wounded person. He looks toward Dokkaebi, but he doesn't know anything. The wounded person is Jung-hyuk, who seems unconscious. He asks Dokkaebi if it was his doing, and he asks him if he has any proof. Dokja knows that he activated a sub-scenario to bring him there, and the timing is too perfect to call this a mere coincidence. Seong says they have found him, and now what they should do, and the constellation, demonic judge of fire, is anxious to hear his decision. He has been gifted 500 coins, and Seong says they have to save him since he is the main character. But if they help him, then he will kill them both. She asks him if they have anything to restrain him, but Dokja says it won't work on him. She suggests that they should lock him up somewhere, and Dokja says he will just kill himself. She then asks what happens to them if he regresses, and Dokja says they should stop him, and no one knows what could happen. By the looks of it, it appears he got taken down with one huge blow, and he remembers the time when he punched him and wondered if it was him. She observes his expressions and asks what happens to him all of a sudden, and Dokja wonders if he has been like this ever since he punched him with 100 strength 2 days ago. Suddenly, he opens his eyes, and they jump backward by getting scared of him. Young-hyuk is staring at him furiously, and Dokja thinks he is done for it, and asks him if he can't just let it go already. He exclaims that they had a fair fight, and he tried to kill him too. He wonders why the main character of TWSA has to be someone like him, and thinks it should be Huiwin or Hyunseon. Young-hyuk tries to say something but doesn't understand what he is trying to say. He activates his level 2 omniscient reader's viewpoint, and he is shocked that he just called his name Dokja Kim. Young-hyuk says he knows he can hear him and is reflecting on everything he has done. He tries to say that this world will end if he doesn't act now. He fainted and tried to call him again, but he didn't respond. He finds it strange and says his resuscitation skill should have kicked in with this much damage. He uses his personal skills to check his character profile, and a notification says there is too much information about this character, which converts the character profile to a character summary. He is shocked to see a status element, which means he must have been poisoned, and it was his only weakness in his early rounds. The woman calls him and asks if he is Dokja Kim, and reveals that Young-hyuk kept telling her to take him to her. Seong calls him and asks what is going on there, and Dokkaebi asks if he can see now that he didn't have anything to do with this. He asks him if he can open up the Dokkaebi shop, and he purchases many items from the Dokkaebi shop to buy many things. He thinks if he has really been poisoned with the 1,000 spirits, Elaine Forest essence alone won't be enough to cure him. Seong asks him what he is making, and he replies that he is making an antidote. Dokja says he came to him on purpose, and he may have wanted to ask for help, and he doesn't think he came all this way in that state to kill him. He knows what kind of person he is, and Seong brings him a spoon. After some time, he finishes making the antidote. He then tries to give him an antidote, and Seong says they will make a great couple. The constellation, Demonic Judge of Fire, is moved by his kindness, and many constellations have gifted him 500 coins. He didn't know feeding him would pay him so well. After some time, he opens his eyes and uses Midday Rendezvous to cure him. It's an item that can be used to have a private conversation with a chosen target for a given time. He is using this item because the poison has paralyzed Young-hyuk's tongue to prevent Seong Han from stealing this intel. Lastly, he doesn't want Young-hyuk to know he can read his mind. He thinks if he had more coins, he would have learned the telepathy skill, and he is notified that his target has accepted his request. Young-hyuk entered his midday rendezvous, and Dokja asked him if he could hear him. Young-hyuk asked him to go east immediately. Dokja is angry to hear that he is ordering him around when he has just saved his life, and Young-hyuk tells him that the catastrophe of questions is about to wake up. Young-hyuk reveals that someone is waking up all the catastrophes, and Dokja remembers the girl from earlier, and that she is the reason behind this all. He then takes Young-hyuk on his shoulders and runs toward the east, and Seong asks him if it is okay to leave that wolf there. Dokja says the immunter can sense where symbol owners are, and he will come to find them when he wakes up. He then asks Seong if she can carry him instead because she can use her avatar. She refuses and asks if he is her, then if he would be able to carry someone who has decapitated him. Young-hyuk asks him to leave him there and says he doesn't need his help. Dokja asks him when he can move independently, and Young-hyuk replies he will move in 2 days. Dokja asks if he will kill him then, but he doesn't answer to him, which makes him anxious. He then says he can't help him if he is going to be like that, and asks how he is supposed to help someone who is out to kill him. He asks him to make an oath of existence with him that he won't kill him until the end of this regression, but Young-hyuk refuses to do this. He then asks him to swear he won't kill him until the end of the 5th scenario, and if he can't do that, then he can't help him. Young-hyuk agrees to swear and uses the Oath of Existence, which he takes on himself. If he breaks the oath, he will be killed by the blue flame that engulfs his heart. He can't believe he made him do this, and Young-hyuk says he won't kill him, but he will get him back for hitting him. He asks permission for just 1 punch, and Dokja says he must go easy on him. After some time, they reach the east, where monsters occupy all the buildings, and the Tier 7 plant monster, Yanispleta, is weary of his presence. Dokja asks Seong not to make sudden moves, saying they will be okay if they don't attack first. It looks like Kronos has started terraforming, and it is revealed that the fifth scenario is a battle between different worlds, and humans must fight off an invasion from another world. Just as Seoul is being terraformed into Kronos, the third Wuxia world is invading China, and the White Demon world will invade Japan. Everywhere is infested by the monsters, and Dokja says the terraforming should have sped up since the catastrophe is waking. Seong asks who could be doing such a thing, and he replies there must be someone like him because she is the one who woke the fire dragon. He handled the dragon because the mid-level dokkaebi penalized the fire dragon. She asks him if there shouldn't be some kind of penalty this time too, and he replies that penalties won't work on the catastrophe of questions, and he doubts the dokkaebi will help them anymore. The monsters in their path have already been slain, and he thinks Young-hyuk must have fought them on his way to find him. Dokja calls Young-hyuk and says he wants to ask him something, and he asks why he came to him in that state. Young-hyuk doesn't answer his question and just calls him pathetic. He says that if he were to give up that easily, then he wouldn't have even begun his journey. Dokja thinks he is right because Young-hyuk of TWSA was someone who never gave up or hesitated to kill. But that was because his mental state had been worn down due to experiencing so many tragedies. He was originally a very humane character who had hopes and dreams. He thought he knew everything about Young-hyuk, but may not know his third regression very well. His understanding of the character Young-hyuk has increased, and he replies that he was the first person who came to mind, and he was brave enough to destroy the ruler's throne, so he thought he would be of help. Dokja thought he would give him an earful about destroying the throne, and Young-hyuk says he also considered the throne a nuisance. He already knows that Dokja did this to back off the otherworld god, and he thinks this is his first time having a serious conversation with him, but aside from being cool, he is very smart too. Young-hyuk says it wasn't a bad idea, but what comes next is a different story. Because he destroyed the throne, the guides had been scattered all over the place, and there had been a setback in collecting the meteorites. Young-hyuk exclaims that this is why the terraforming sped up in Gwangjin-gu and Guangdong-gu, and the Wanderers used the meteorites' power. Dokja says using its power doesn't speed up the terraforming, and Young-hyuk reveals that one of the 10 evils got its hands on a meteorite. He asks Young-hyuk if she is the poison beauty Seol-hwa-lee, and he replies that she is the only person who can use 1,000 poisons. He asks Young-hyuk how she infected him, and he wouldn't have fought her head-on if he knew who he was up against. Young-hyuk says he tried talking to her and thought he could make her an ally. Dokja remembers in the TWSA that she was also one of his allies, and he remembers now that the poison beauty Seol-hwa-lee was not only his second regression companion, but also his lover. However, he says it's not like his nature to do this, and he also feels embarrassed. He says she wasn't the Seol-hwa he knew, but he wanted to believe, even for a moment, that she was still the same woman of his memories. Dokja says he knows how he is feeling, and Young-hyuk says it looks like he has regressed before. Dokja thinks no one has ever understood him, nor will he in the future, and he is notified that Young-hyuk has been deeply shaken. He has received a little consolation from him, and he finds it strange because Dokja is not a regressor. He asks him if this is one of his abilities as a prophet, but he angrily says he won't let his guard down because he is a scoundrel who kidnapped his sister. Dokja clarifies to him that he didn't kidnap her, but he was just protecting her, and he should know that he is telling the truth since he has the lie detection skill. Suddenly, they see a huge monster upward with so many eyes and faces. Seong says they are too late since the catastrophe seems already awake. Dokja doubts this because the scenario just started, and they have arrived at Poison Beauty's territory, and he thinks she is moving faster than expected. Looking at their defenses, he can tell that this isn't easy. Seong asks him if he has a plan, and he replies that they only need to steal the meteorite, and he will hold them at bay while she goes and grabs it. Young-hyuk says there is no need to hurry even if the catastrophe begins since the catastrophe of questions can be suppressed right away. Dokja asks him how they will suppress it and who he suggests to do that because he is injured. Young-hyuk asks him to do this and says he was going to do that anyway, and he angrily says he probably already woke the guide and learned Path of the Wind. Dokja thinks he must be upset that he stole his chance to learn the Path of the Wind. He tells him that he didn't learn the skill, and Young-hyuk is surprised because he had plenty of time. But he is happy when Dokja tells him that he doesn't have the talent to learn the skill, and then he furiously says he could have just let him do that. Dokja thinks he can't see his face, but he can feel his glare on the back of his head. Suddenly, Seong calls them and informs them about some people approaching them. They hear a voice where someone calls them to run toward Chunharijio, and they see some people running toward them and calling for help. However, they get stabbed from behind, and by the color of their wounds, Dokja observes that those are poison arrows. A few men attack them, and they throw their arrows toward Dokja and Seong. Dokja suddenly creates a light web, and the poison arrows guard it. A man shouts at them and asks his team members to get them, but a light thread appears from a side, getting stuck in their feet and making them fall. Seong asks Dokja to see a woman who helped them, and he tries to check her character profile, but her account needs to be registered in TWSA. He is shocked to see the girl and wonders if she is really Sangha he knows from earlier. She makes her light path and jumps upon it swiftly. After that, she takes out her swords and attacks them, and she soon ties everyone with the help of her thread. She then tightens the thread and beheads everyone in just one blow. Dokja is shocked to see her new avatar, and he wonders if she is really the Sangha he knew. He wonders how she got so strong and if this is because of her talent. A few people rush toward her to attack, and Young-hyuk says she has quickly improved in his absence. Dokja says she has gotten to where she is now because of how much he initially helped her. He doesn't seem happy to see her powerful and calls her from behind when she is fighting with the people. She asks him what he is doing there, and he asks her to talk after they leave. Young-hyuk asks him to get to the high-rise back over there, and they need to secure a view of the surroundings from higher ground. He also instructs him to watch that woman better, and Dokja wonders which woman he is talking about because there are Sangha and Seong. After some time, they reach a safe place, and he asks her if she is fine. After that, there is an awkward silence, and he wonders if they have only been apart for a few days, but things are awkward between them. He observes that she is pretty well equipped, and she says he has been through a lot too. She tells him that when she opened her eyes after being transported, she was in Gangdong-gu with Pildo. He helped her out a lot, and Dokja observed they seemed to have gotten close, seeing how she was calling him by name now. He asks her about him, and she reveals that they separated when fighting against the Gangdong-gu group. He was trying to save her and asked her to run away. At the last minute, he lures them toward the Han River, and Dokja is shocked that he died saving someone because he was one of the 10 evils. But he should still be alive after seeing how nothing has happened to him despite the contract with the defense master. He asks Sangha not to worry because Pildo should be okay. He then asks her where she got those clothes and knives, and she replies that after they got separated, he came across a green meteorite. He thinks the green meteorite holds rare items, and she was lucky to have come across it so early. Seong doubts her and says those items alone couldn't have made her that strong. She asks her about her supporting constellation and how she leveled up her agile movement and reinforced knife fighting skills so quickly. Sangha is surprised by her questions and asks her about her identity, and she tells her that she is the first disciple. Sangha remembers the time when they attacked their group and also beat Jihai badly, and now she gets that she was the reason behind all this. She angrily takes out her knife and is ready to attack her, but Dokja stops her and says she is not an enemy. She asks them if they are friends already, and he says it's nothing like that, but she killed all those in the Chungmuro group. Dokja remembers she was the second in command of the Chungmuro group in his absence, and Seong seems to recognize her. He calls Dokja and says Sangha seems to be hiding something. She says she wasn't that strong when she saw her then, but now she seems suspicious. She cannot improve herself that fast, even with a fabled constellation supporting her, unless she has an SSS-grade growth skill. Dokja wants to say her wrong, but he can't help but agree with her. Seeing her use the magic thread, he thought her supporting constellation was Aradni, lover of the abandoned labyrinth. However, a constellation at that level can't help her grow that quickly. Her movements looked like Hermes' stroll, but if her supporting constellation were Ariadne, she wouldn't be able to use Hermes' stigma. He is about to ask her something, but a dokkaebi appears there and says it looks like the participants seem to be hot-headed this time. They still have a week to go until the start of the scenario, but many of them are waking the catastrophe. He would take it easy for a while since the dokkaebi in charge was away. He smiles and says they are begging for it, and he can give them a scenario and still call himself a dokkaebi. Dokja thinks it is not good because the scenario at a time like this can only mean their death. Their attribute windows appear before them, and their name is Stop the Catastrophe, and they must get rid of them and stop the catastrophe from waking. The catastrophe is about to hatch soon, and since they were given a scenario to stop it, then the Poison Beauties group should have been given a scenario to protect the catastrophe. He then asks them to calm down and says this isn't the time to fight amongst themselves. The time limit for the scenario is 2 hours, which means that the catastrophe will be hatched in 2 hours. They have to take care of this matter first. It is revealed that the Poison Beauty group is based in the Chinho-dong area within Gangdong-go, which is full of churches and cathedrals. The least terraformed area is north-northeast from their base, near Qingjong Row 16GL. If they can make it through there, they will be able to get to their base in no time, and it will be heavily guarded though. Dokja says they can move from building to building where possible, and he asks Seong and Snaga to take the front and try to get along. They follow his instructions and reach the front area where there are many wanderers already. Dokja runs toward a window to reach the poisonous beauty while the wanderers run behind Seong, who uses her avatars to distract them. In the meantime, Sangha appeared from behind and used her light thread to tie them up. They get stuck in her thread and fall to the ground. She uses her thread and tears one's head using it. Seong calls her ruthless, while Sangha says that is rich coming from her. Dokja observes them and thinks they will make a good pair, while he reaches the Poison Beauty in no time. She calls him and asks about his identity, but Dokja doesn't recognize her right away, seeing her white hair and lips as red as a poppy blooming atop a snowy mountain. She is one of the 10 evils called the Poison Beauty, Seolholi. It is revealed that there are 3 ways of hatching the meteorite. The first is to wait until it hatches at the start of the scenario, and the second is to borrow the meteorite's power. The third and fastest method is to fill the meteorite with mana deliberately. The hatching ceremony, the Prayer of the Lost, releases a slight mana, and Seolhwa sets up camp in an area with many churches so she can hatch the meteorite with the people's mana. He asks her to stop all this unless she wants to die, but she asks him again about his identity. He thinks that in TWSA's third regression, she borrowed the meteorite's power, but she wasn't foolish enough to try to hatch it earlier like this. He asks her to stop hatching the meteorite immediately, and she asks him what he will do if she refuses. She informs him that they will die there, but asks him to look to the side where she has created many monsters. They are all called Tier B Humanoid Demon Insect Man, and he is being notified that they are all hostile towards him. He finds it strange and wonders why the meteorite shouldn't give her the power to mutate people, and she orders them to kill Dokja. He activates his skill, Blade of Faith, and changes his ether affix into the fire. He puts fire everywhere to burn those insects away, and the fire pressure is so much that Seolhwa covers her eyes from it. She is then shocked to see a sword coming toward her, and Dokja tries to hit her with the sword, but she grabs the sword at the time and dodges his attack. She uses her poison nails and tries to attack him back, but he pushes behind and saves himself. He again asks her to give up and says catastrophe won't be good for her either, and there isn't even a penalty for failure in this scenario. He observes the glare in her eyes, and it looks like she is more determined to wake the catastrophe than to harness its power. Even those who don't know the original story can see that Soul will be ruined if it wakes, and he wonders why she is trying to wake it up. He activates his personal skill to check her character profile and finds out that a parasite has infected her and it is controlling her mind. Dokja is notified that his memory of certain scenes has been elaborated due to his attribute, and he remembers that the 5th scenario was created with the catastrophe of Korons as its motive. The day Kronos was destroyed, then the 5 ruling species of Koronos each elected a hero. They were to carry on each of their world's legacies by surviving the end of their worlds, and they were sent to other worlds through a star stream contract. The hero's survival was guaranteed, but in return, they had to help the species of the other worlds in protecting their own from the oncoming catastrophe. They call those heroes as guides. Seolhwa calls him the human of Earth and asks how he knows such things, while he calls her parasite queen Antinous. He knows that she is not Seolhwa Lee and asks her why she is waking the catastrophe when she is supposed to be a guide. He is notified that the Tier 5 Monarch level insect, Parasite Antinous, is glaring at him, and she mutates all those people. He asks her what she will gain by waking up from the catastrophe early when the guides are supposed to stop the catastrophe alongside humans and build a new world with them. She doesn't answer his questions and rushes to attack him badly, but he grabs her from his hand and says it must have taken quite an effort to terraform this world. She throws her away and asks why she is trying to destroy it. The parasite queen starts bleeding and asks how can a lowly human has such power. Dokja asks her again what she is doing after going against her mission and asks her to leave that body before it's too late. He also asks her to accomplish the mission she was given as a guide. He remembers in TWSA, the poison beauty becomes one of the 10 evils after being infected by the parasite, and if she can escape the infection, then he won't have to kill her. Suddenly, Jung-hyuk calls her from behind and asks her to kill her because the survival of the world is more important than her life. He asks Dokja to think wisely, and he again asks him if he is sure, but he replies that he doesn't care about her. He knows that if Seol-hwa Lee dies there, then Jung-hyuk will collapse someday. The death of his acquaintances will eat away his memories and wear down his mind. Unfortunately, he takes too much time to think, and Seol-hwa gets up and tries to attack him again. She scratches his hand with her nail, which contains poison in it, and Jung-hyuk asks him if he has a way to fight against her thousand spirit poison. Dokja asks her if she knows who he is that she has infected, and if she knows that, then she wouldn't have entered her body like that. He shows her a book, and he is notified that his body has temporarily gained resistance to poison, and the constellation Divine Doctrine Guam is looking at him in amazement. The book is called Blocks Poinso Damage, and the constellation Divine Dr. Guam is looking at him in amazement. Dokja thinks about the king's qualifications, which were underway, and that all the kings were after the 4 yin demon decapitators. He collected many other items, including a book called Dongbabogam. Dongbabogam was a constellation artifact that could only be completed after collecting its 25th chapters. He could only find 8, but it was enough to activate the effect of the S-grade item, Detox Bead. Seol-hwa is shocked to see her thousand spirit poison being destroyed by him, and Dokja tells him that it can't be removed using the detox bead. However, she can do this with Dongbabogam, and he is notified that the item's effect, Dongbabogam Incomplete, is currently activated because the constellation that created the thousand spirit poison is Divine Dr. Guam, Junhyo. The constellation Divine Dr. Gua laughs faintly at his story. It is revealed that a poison created by studying 1,000 spirits is the 1,000 spirit poison that Seol-hwa Lee is exuding right now. Dongbabogam essentially recorded Junhyo's failed attempt to perfect the 1,000 spirit poison. This parasite infection had nothing to do with his original intentions, which means Seol-hwa wasn't attacking him out of her own will. He is notified that the constellation Divine Dr. Guam is looking at him apologetically, and they ask for his forgiveness. He asks Seol-hwa to get out of there while he is giving her a chance. He advises her to return to a guide since it's not too late, teach people her skills, and get along with them. He says she might be a constellation one day, but she despises him. Dokja wonders if it is her hatred for humans that caused this. He apologizes to her for destroying her world, but that doesn't mean that she has to destroy other worlds as well. But she doesn't listen to him and jumps upon him to attack, saying all of them will die. Dokja grabs her hand and thinks he doesn't want to do this since Seol-hwa would be in a lot of pain. He is notified that the special effect of Dongbabogam Incomplete has been activated, and it has taught them the essence of Oriental medicine. Dokja thinks his book is incomplete, so he can't use it to concoct powerful poisons or save someone from dying. However, he can give basic treatment to someone who is sick. He uses the personal skill, Pressure Point Level 2, and hits her head to remove the insect from her body. She cries in pain, sits on the ground, and shouts loudly. However, he is notified that the essence of Oriental medicine takes its effect, and a stream of fluid comes out of her mouth. The constellation, Divine Dr. Guam, looks down on him proudly, and he has been gifted 500 coins. She then comes into consciousness and asks him about who he is, and he replies that Jung-hyuk has sent him. She asks him about Jung-hyuk, but he asks him not to do anything stupid there. He thinks with the medicine, Seol-hwa will be able to join Jung-hyuk's group. Meanwhile, Song-ha and Seong come to them and inform them they are done with the people on the other side. Suddenly, he forbids them from coming any closer, and a huge parasite emerges from Seol-hwa's body. The parasite Queen Antinous looks like this, and he asks everyone to get away before they get infected. The queen tries to attack him, but he grabs her leg. She is fast, and he can't dodge it, even with her agility over 50. Although her world is gone, she has been a hero there and is probably as strong as Lakyon. Suddenly, the queen attacks him and throws him away, and he thinks he just needs to hold her off a bit more. A guide can't go rampaging like that before the scenario ends, and she is violating the rules of plausibility. there is no way she will be able to handle what comes after. He then remembers his gadget with him and asks the queen if he is not the one she should be fighting. Suddenly, Lakyon interrupts them and asks Dokja if he has called for him. Antanas calls him from behind, and he furiously asks her what she is doing there. He asks her if she needs to remember her mission and why she is fighting against the humans of this world. Antanas asks if she didn't know they had such things, and he tells her that it's their duty as guides to lead them in their fight against the oncoming catastrophe. He asks her if she has forgotten how the warriors of Kronos sacrificed themselves, and they must stop the disaster there. Everyone is watching them having a conversation, and Lakyon says they must work with the people there to protect the terraformed planet and rebuild their civilization there. He tells her that this is their divine calling, and Dokja thinks rebuilding Kronos may call themselves guides and look like their allies, but their end goal is to weaken their world and rebuild their destroyed world Kronos. They are only helping them to achieve their goal. The parasite queen shouts at him and asks him why he has come there to stop the catastrophe. He asks her if he wants to help them and why he didn't object when Earth was chosen as a target for the disasters. Seong asks Dokja what they are talking about, and she tells Lakyon that they came to this planet for vengeance, and they are there to make those who destroyed their world shed tears of blood. Lakyon warns her, saying she will die if she does that, and Starstream's rule of plausibility won't let her run amok like that. She exclaims that Antanas, whom she once knew, has died in their homeworld with the other parasites, and Lakyon is disappointed that she doesn't understand him. She turns back and asks him if he has forgotten the history of Kronos, and that the wolves have never won against them insects. Lakyon replies he is not the same immunter she used to know, and she laughs and says she will see by herself how much his way has improved. She uses her skill, Accelerating Wings level 8, and jumps to attack Lakyon at full speed. At the same time, she uses another skill, Mantis Break level 8, and jumps toward him, but he reacts on time and dodges her attack. She attacks him multiple times, but he dodges her every time. Everyone is shocked to see that instant acceleration, and Dokja tells them he is using the Way of the Wind. He thinks about the skills that can be used for mobilizing, dodging, and attacking, and if he can master them, he can use them instead of all other skills. Soon, the parasite queen is exhausted by his skill and the pressure of the wind, and Lakyon asks her to kneel before the might of the wind. He again attacks her with his full might, and this time the wind pressure pierces through her body. Lakyon is angrily looking down on Antanas. She is having a hard time fighting Lakyon. Dokja Kim thinks that it will not be easy even for a hero of Kronos like Antanas to simultaneously fight Lakyon and face the consequences for breaking the rules of plausibility. Antanas starts flying and says that she is not going down like this. Jung-hyuk-yu messages Kim to kill her as she is flying towards the meteorite. Lakyon shouts that she is trying to inject the meteorite with her remaining mana. Kim grabs his sword and moves towards Antanas. She is creating an energy ball and says that her world, her species, and her children were all killed. She starts crying and says now she will make them pay for destroying her home and her world. The system notifies Kim that the Blade of Faith has been activated, and Kim and Lakyon attack Antanas simultaneously. Kim cuts her head using his sword and wonders if he stopped her. Lakyon clenches his teeth and tells Master Kim that he is sorry. The meteorite starts breaking and light comes out from it. Suddenly, there is a huge blast, and the debris of the meteorite starts flying everywhere. One hits Kim's head, and he starts bleeding. The system notifies Kim that he has failed to clear the scenario. Sangha looks at Kim, who is lying on the ground after the blast. Sangha looks at meteorite and sees that it is gone. There is a person coming out of the smoke. He is wearing nothing but underwear and has long hair. The system notifies them that the catastrophe of questions has appeared in their world. The catastrophe starts remembering his past. When he asks the ball of energy if he indeed became the hero, Seong starts running towards Kim and asks him what that catastrophe is. The system notifies Kim that the catastrophe of questions has been weakened due to his premature hatching, but as a penalty for failing to clear the scenario in time, he can't attack for 3 minutes. Kim is angry and says that they are the ones being penalized and not the catastrophe. He thinks that they need to kill him right away. The catastrophe looks at a person lying under a piece of meteorite and asks if she is all right. He asks her where he is right now and what year it is, and the person replies that they are in Seoul. The system notifies that the first question has been answered, and the first seal on the returnee, Il-sang Myung, has been broken. Myung starts laughing and asks if they know just how much he has been through. He asks if they have ever lived for an entire century in a world where they are the only human. Myung asks if they know that there are other dimensions besides this one. They are full of disgusting insects, birds, and werewolves. He asks the person to tell him which one is the best out of insects, birds, and werewolves. The person asks best at what? Myung starts laughing and asks again which one she thinks is the most delicious. She pleads with Myung not to kill her, but he smashes her skull with his foot, and blood is spilt everywhere. He starts smiling and says that it is obvious what he has to do now. He says that he will beat up some S-grade incarnations and break apart cocky coalitions. Myung looks at Songa and instantly comes close to her and tells her that she is very pretty. The system notifies her that the penalty for hatching prematurely has ended, and the force that has been restraining them has been removed. Kim starts getting back up and says get away from him, Songa. Songa asks Myung who he is. He grabs her chin and asks if she wants him to tell her. Meanwhile, Kim thinks that he is one of the 5 catastrophes of the 5th scenario, and he is the one who destroyed Kronos, the catastrophe of questions. He is the reason why Antinous wanted to destroy the Earth. He is the boy who was summoned to Kronos as a hero, the returnee from Earth, Il-sang Myung. Myung asks Songa if she wants to know who he is. By grabbing her face, he asks if she isn't supposed to blush and avoid his gaze in situations like these. He tells Songa that she must be a feisty one. Kim looks at Songa from a distance and says that she mustn't answer his questions. Myung asks her where she is looking and tells her to keep her eyes on him. He asks Songa if that is her boyfriend, and Sanga removes his hand from her face and tells him not to touch her. The system notifies that the second question has been answered and the second seal on Myung has been broken. Sanga brings out her knife and takes a fighting stance. Myung gets angry and says that he is her boyfriend. He tells Songa that she has been having the time of her life in a peaceful world when he was stuck in that hellish dimension for 100 years and attacks her by firing a cannon from his finger. Songa jumps to the side to avoid the attack. The system notifies that Myung has used a small red fire cannon and the attack hits Kim. Kim thinks that's the flame that engulfed the monarch-level insects of Kronos. He says that it hurts, but not as much as he thought it would. Kim is unharmed by the fire and wonders if this is the red fire cannon that the insects trembled before. Songa jumps towards Myung to attack him using a knife. He dodges the blade and asks how she is so strong. He says that he must have gotten weaker. Kim thinks this is weird because Myung should be much stronger with 2 seals broken. Even if Songa is stronger now, there is no way that she is on the same level as a catastrophe. Kim activates Myung's character profile as he dodges another slash from Songa. The system displays all the information about Myung. He looks 17 years old, but he is 127 years old. His supporting constellation is a mass production maker, and his personal attributes are an SSS-grade hero and the legendary catastrophe of questions. Personal skills include SSS grade Growth Acceleration level 10 current level 1, SSS grade Swordsmanship level 10 current level 1, Red Fire Cannon level 9 current level 1, SSS grade Footwork level 10 current level 1. His Stigma is currently at level 2, his Stamina, Agility, Strength and Mana are at level 99, but currently his level is at 55. The system notifies that the catastrophe of questions that destroyed Kronos. His stats are currently sealed as a penalty in this scenario, but will rise as each seal is broken, and his true power will awaken when all the seals are broken. Don't answer his questions if one wants to live. Kim says that Myung is weaker than he was in the novel and wonders if Bi-hyung is helping him. He thinks that it is finally their chance to kill him and shouts at Sanga and Seong to attack Myung with their full force because they need to kill him before he gets stronger. They start attacking Myung. Kim thinks that they might be able to kill him without Way of the Wind, and he shouts that remember not to answer his questions no matter what. Kim raises his mana to level 50 and stamina and agility to level 60 by spending 39,500 coins. Kim activates the Stigma Sword Song level 1 and attacks Myung. Myung says that skill looks super strong and kicks Kim in the stomach. Kim remembers that this is how TWSA described them when they first appeared. Some travel back in time, some travel to another dimension, and some are born again. People have different ways of surviving the apocalypse. There are 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. Number 2 of those 3 ways to survive the apocalypse is when people return after destroying other dimensions for their survival. They are called returnee. Myung asks Kim what that was for and says that he gave him a fright. Kim is on the ground and bleeding from the mouth. He grabs his stomach and says a wartime diary doesn't necessarily mean that it is only full of battles. At the same time, Seong attacks Myung using different clones, but he easily deflects her attacks and tells her that she is pretty too. He asks her how old is she, and if she is in middle school, she tells him to shut up and die. Myung asks if he did something wrong because he thought she would welcome such a handsome returnee like himself with open arms. Seong gets angry and asks what the hell he is going on about and calls him a nut job. Myung keeps dodging her attacks and says that hurt his feelings. He says that she must be from the Hunters Association, which is the one that usually picks fights with returnees. Seong is annoyed and asks what he is saying. She calls him a lousy brat and says there is no such thing. Suddenly, the system notifies that the 3rd, 4th, and 5th questions have been answered. Myung starts laughing, and the system notifies that the 5th seal on the returnee has been broken. Everyone is scared. Kim thinks that this is bad, and Myung starts laughing hysterically and says that it is time to play. He asks everyone who wants to die first. Seong jumps back and asks Kim what his desk is. Kim says that he told her not to feed him by answering his questions, but she says that she didn't answer him. She was just cussing at him. Kim tells her that she shouldn't say anything because he takes any response as an answer. Sangha starts attacking Myung. She jumps in the air and attacks him using her web. Kim is surprised to see that and says that it is Hermes' stroll, Theseus's resolution, and Arakan's web. Those things are undoubtedly stigmas of the Olympian constellations, but without having undergone a special event, there's no way she can have all those stigmas from different constellations. Kim thinks that Sangha didn't even read TWSA and wonders how she obtained all those stigmas. Myung attacks back using his cannon, but it gets cut by the web. Sangha tells Kim to do it now as Myung has been captured in the web. Kim jumps in and swings his sword. The sword cuts the web and slices Myung's shoulder, and blood starts coming out. The system notifies that Myung has used blink number 1, and he suddenly disappears. Seong is angry that he got away. The system notifies that the constellation's secretive plotter lets out a sympathetic sigh. The constellation prisoner of the golden headband is annoyed by how the story has come to a halt, and the constellation abyssal black flame dragon nags its fine at them, saying that they should pick up the slack. The excitement level of some constellations has risen to dangerous levels. Kim wipes blood from his mouth and tells everyone that it is okay. They have done some damage, so they will be able to catch him. He tells Sangha that she did great, and Sangha suddenly starts fainting. After some time, Seong is carrying Sangha on her back and asks Kim if she is a nanny. She asks Kim why he always makes her carry whoever is passed out. Kim thinks that Sangha used multiple stigmas at full power. It must have taken a toll on her body. There are incarnations with stigmas of multiple constellations in TWSA. Seong says the catastrophe of questions gets stronger every time they answer his questions. She asks Kim how many seals there are. Kim replies that since they are much stronger, returnees are penalized when they return to their world. There are probably a dozen seals, and they are done if all of them are broken. Kim says that one thing that they can count on is that there hasn't been an additional scenario yet. If everyone flocks to fight him, and those idiots answer all his questions to break the seal, then they are doomed. Suddenly, a dokkaebi appears in front of everyone and says that he is quite impressed. Despite the penalty, Myung is still a catastrophe, and yet they are able to corner him, but they are too greedy. He asks how the saying goes that sharing is caring. A monster is descending from the sky while the dokkaebi starts addressing the incarnations of soul. He says that he is sorry to tell them this, but he has got bad news. Due to the actions of a certain group of people, one of the catastrophe was hatched in Gangdong. He can hear their lamentations all the way from there, and he sees a few of them even trying to escape from the Gangdong area, but they will regret it if they do because this catastrophe is an opportunity. He asks everyone if they don't have a hard time earning coins. Their livelihoods collapsed overnight. Then some strange beings started taking their coins, and the friends they had are now their enemies. At least they no longer have to go to work, but now the stars in the sky are saying that they will give them 100 coins if they dance like monkeys. The system notifies that a few constellations are cackling. Kim thinks that he can tell from the way he speaks that he shouldn't take him lightly. He's not some low-level dokkaebi. He knows that he is speaking to people and not just a crowd. The dokkaebi says that he understands the helplessness they all must have felt. They have managed to muster up the courage and start a new life in this world. But even here, it's already been decided who will succeed and who will fail. The defeat they must have felt when they realized that those who are better than they already had better supporting constellations when they have worked so hard to find one themselves. He says that he has prepared this opportunity for people like them, and the unlucky and the downtrodden will now get the chance to turn their lives around. Kim looks at the dokkaebi in the air and wonders if he is Dokjak. He says that he didn't expect to see a dokkaebi from a major channel like him. Suddenly, a screen appears in the air. The dokkaebi says that the boy they are seeing right now is a walking SSS grade item, and his name is Myung. He was fortunate enough to be chosen by the star stream to travel to another dimension. They all must have imagined this at least once when they are summoned to a different world with immeasurable powers, and they spend the night with their hot elf girlfriend, save the world, and become the hero of that world. He says that this damned brat on the screen is the catastrophe they must hunt. He says that if they are wondering how to defeat an SSS-grade catastrophe, then don't worry. His powers have been sealed away. He may be strong, but he is a treasure chest waiting to be opened if they all join forces. Kim says that no one will come if one calls a catastrophe, but if one calls it a treasure chest, then everyone will lose their minds. The system notifies that the sub-scenario has been updated. The sub-scenario is to hunt down the SSS-grade hero, Myung, and there is no time limit. The reward is 5,000 coins and a random SSS-grade item. The penalty for failure is the destruction of the Soul Dome. Myung is running away and wonders if the bleeding stops. A man looks at him and says that he has found the boy who has been to another dimension. Myung excitedly says that he is right, that is him. The people call him a selfish jerk and say that he must have had some fun while he was there. Myung says that he sure did, and if they are that jealous then he can send them there. Myung asks if they want to go there. A man asks if they can really go. Myung asks if he's sure that he wants to go. The man replies that he wouldn't mind going if he could. The system notifies that the 8th and the 9th seal on the returnee has been broken. Kim and Seong arrive there, but it is already too late because Myung has broken the 14th seal. He tells everyone that he doubts that things are any better there because he destroyed that place. Myung starts laughing as he attacks everyone in front using a middle red fire cannon. Kim and Seong take cover in an alley. The attack is so strong that it burns the entire street, and Seong asks Kim how they are supposed to defeat him now. Myung asks if anyone else wants to go there too, then show their hands and he will gladly send them there. Kim tells Seong that they can take him down, and the rewards will be better now that more seals have been broken. Seong says that he must be joking and tells him that they should run away because they can't beat him. Seong says that it looked like Kim was going to give up earlier. She asks Kim why he is so confident all of a sudden. Myung appears behind her and says that he found her. She is still here. Kim and Seong are startled to see him there. Myung says that they are those people from the Hunters Association, and that's good because he was looking for them. He asks if they know that they have ruined his plans for a glorious return. Myung says that he was going to turn over a new leaf, teach some masquerade incarnations a lesson, break apart cocky coalitions, and make love to pretty women, but look at him now. He's a villain. There is a huge blast in the alley. Kim and Seong are running away, and Myung asks them what they are going to do about this. Seong says while running that they can never beat him. He's gotten so much stronger than before. Myung catches up to them in no time and punches them both from behind, and they both crash on the ground. The system notifies Kim that Yu says he doesn't stand a chance of fighting Myung head-on. Kim replies that he knows, but he still has to try. Yu asks how he could let things get so out of hand. Yu tells Kim that he had many chances. If he had killed Seolhwa, or if he had worked with Lycaon to kill Antinous, then he could have stopped the catastrophe. Kim replies to Yu that he is not a regressor like him. He has to be cautious because he will die if he fails, and he has to think things over and over. Yu asks if he thinks that he is a constellation or something. Yu tells Kim that he can't be in control of everything just because he knows the future. Kim is shocked to read that on the screen. He thinks that he was arrogant because he had read the novel, and he believed that he could find a way no matter how the original story is twisted. Maybe that is why the situation has worsened. Kim says that Yu may be right. He is not omniscient just because he has read the original novel. The system notifies Kim that the personal skill, the fourth wall, has been activated. Kim starts running and replies that you should step up and fight. He asks you why he is counting on him. You tells Kim that he may not need the way of the wind to beat him. Kim asks what he means by that and says that skill is a must. You says that his attribute is that of a pro gamer, and he asks Kim what he is. Kim stops running and wonders what he is good at. Myung approaches from behind and asks why he isn't running away. He asks Kim if he is going to fight him, and if he forgot how he beat him up just now. Kim closes his eyes and thinks that he seems to be missing something important. Let's calm down and think. Kim remembers that he is good at reading. The system notifies Kim that level 1 of the omniscient reader's viewpoint is activated. Myung leaps toward Kim to kill him with his punch, but Kim dodges. The system notifies that a phrase left behind by the naval warfare god engulfs his sword, and the Stigma sword song has been activated. His combat abilities have been enhanced due to the determination for victory, and Blade of Faith has been activated. Kim dodges Myung's punch and swings his sword at him, but he jumps in the air and kicks Kim's head. The system notifies that Myung is impressed by his fortitude, and Kim's understanding of Myung has increased. Kim thinks that he can't beat him with just the information he has on him from TWSA, and he can't take into account every move he makes when fighting. He wonders if he should use Ganpyeongui. He could beat him if he gets help from a constellation, but he doesn't want to be indebted any further. He wishes that he had a talent if he could steal someone's talent. Kim suddenly realizes that he can steal and calls himself an idiot for not realizing it sooner. Seong asks if he is going to keep fighting Myung. Suddenly, a book appears in the air, and the system notifies that the personal skill bookmark has been activated. The number of bookmarks available is 4, and the 4th place is empty. There is a list of characters that can be added to the bookmark. Kim starts searching for a suitable character, and he starts grinning after finding it. The system notifies that the duration of the bookmark skill will be determined based on his skill level, and the current duration is 30 minutes. Kim can choose to make one of their skills his own. Seong is shocked to see Kim using the Way of the Wind and asks how that is possible. Myung is busy fighting Seong's clones. Kim moves towards Myung at an insane speed and punches him in the face. He starts bleeding from the nose and says that Kim has gotten faster. He says that is the skill the wolves use. Kim says that he is a reader, and this is how he fights. As the Way of the Wind level 8 has been activated, Kim wonders why did he try to learn the skill like a moron when he's not a regressor or a returnee. Kim has Tempest in the left hand and Storm in the right. The Way of the Wind will open up where the straight and the curved meet. Myung says that Kim acts like he has had an epiphany with that lousy skill of his. He says that he was the one who killed their king. Myung uses blink again and disappears. Kim wonders if he has gone to look for someone to answer his questions. Myung appears behind a person and asks what his name is. At the same time, Kim attacks from behind with a kick, but Myung stops the kick without looking and says that it tickles. The system notifies that the 24th seal on Myung has been broken. Kim jumps back and says that he was too late. Kim thinks that he can't kill him just by using the Way of the Wind as a support skill. He has to use that skill, but the problem is that someone needs to buy him some time. Myung is laughing, and someone appears behind him in the sky and attacks him. Kim is shocked to see that the road is destroyed by the impact. The dust settles down, and Kim sees Yu standing on Myung. He tells Kim to get started while he stops Myung. Seong looks at Yu and says that he sure is the main character. Myung says that it is getting a bit annoying. They are making him look like a villain. He gets up and starts attacking Yu. Yu defends against a punch using his sword and thinks that he hasn't fully recovered yet. He starts exchanging blows with Myung. Meanwhile, Kim is busy preparing for the attack. Yu attacks Myung using his sword, but he grabs his arm and starts punching him. Yu gets blown away by his attack. Myung looks around. A strong wind is blowing around him. Myung is shocked to see that it feels like a tornado, and Myung is sick in a vacuum prison. Kim is controlling the wind and says that is why he wanted to learn the Way of the Wind. This is the best way to beat the catastrophe of questions. Myung starts to speak, but he can't utter a single word. He wonders why he can't speak and can't even breathe properly. Kim thinks that this skill costs too much mana, and blood starts dripping from his nose. Kim thinks that if Myung doesn't ask questions for a while, then it is just as easy to weaken him. Myung is trying to break free from the vacuum prison, while the system notifies that the 21st seal on the returnee Myung has been regenerated. His power decreases as he starts punching the vacuum. Kim thinks that he has to hold him until all seals are regenerated. If he can reduce the size of the vacuum prison to surround just around his body, he would use less mana. Myung clenches his teeth, and he is furious as the system notifies that the 9th seal has been regenerated. Yu comes near Kim and tells him don't try to control the wind with his strength. He has to guide it gently and not think of it as building a wall around Myung, but rather simply removing the matter surrounding him. Suddenly, the wind vacuum starts contracting around Myung. He says that he can't breathe. Yu tells Kim that he does have a little talent in him after all. Suddenly, the system notifies us that Myung has used a large red fire cannon on level 3. Kim sees that the attack is about to hit some people. Yu puts his hand on Kim's shoulder and tells him not to do anything foolish, their lives aren't worth saving. Kim says that he might be right about some of them, but not all of them are alike. Kim starts running and he thinks that he can do this. Myung is not that strong right now. Kim says that it feels like he can control the wind more easily now, and it feels as if he has become one with the wind. Kim rushes towards the fire cannon. He stops the attack using the way of the wind and diverts its direction. Kim is bleeding from his face and panting hard. He is about to fall back, but Yu stops him from behind and says that he is going to be the one to kill him. Kim wonders if Yu transferred his mana to him. The system notifies that all the seals on the returnee Myung have been regenerated and the way of the wind has been deactivated. Myung falls to his knees and starts coughing. Kim grabs his sword and tells him that he will kill him if he asks any more questions and tells him to keep his mouth shut. Myung starts crawling on the ground and says that he is supposed to be the main character. Yu stabs Myung from behind and kills him. The system notifies that he is the first in the scenario to fight and defeat the returnee. The main contributors are Dokja Kim and Younghyuk Yu. They have received 40,000 coins for their achievement and revived a new fable, the one who fought against a miracle. They have also obtained the possibility of a new stigma. The system notifies that the constellation prisoner of the golden headband is somewhat satisfied. The secretive plotter nods despite his dissatisfaction. The demonic judge of fire is happy with his fable, and he has been gifted 25,000 points. The catastrophe is lying dead on the ground in a pool of his blood. Kim thinks that he can still feel the wind flowing freely in his hands. He looks at the injured people and says that scenes like these weren't in the novel, and you must have seen it happen over and over again. Kim always thought he had read TWSA to the end, but it was different from how he understood it. Perhaps he doesn't know this world as well as he thinks he does.